I didn't really like the water growing up. It was something that I had to get used to. I've heard it from the time that I was little that black kids aren't good at swimming for whatever reason. I think that a big goal of mine is just to put Nigerian swimming in a place where we're recognized in the international swimming scene. I spent most of my childhood in Baltimore, Maryland. And we were just really involved with the Nigerian community in Baltimore. There's like a pretty vibrant Nigerian community in Maryland, and we always tried to stay connected with that. It was cool being able to go to these big events and seeing people that not only looked like you, but knew about your family and knew about like my grandma and my cousins. They would teach me a piece of myself that I didn't even know about. When an African comes to the United States, people they're still seen as black. You're a black individual. And it's kind of hard for the world to distinguish whether or not you're Nigerian or Ghanaian or Kenyan or African American, you know? So I think that navigating that interplay was always really interesting, but there were very stark cultural differences between the African community and the African American community that I had to learn how to navigate just to kind of get by. I remember when I was young, I would be sometimes embarrassed to tell people that I was Nigerian, or sometimes embarrassed to really let people know my true ancestry, just because I didn't know how people would take it. I didn't know how my friends in school and my teachers would be able to say things, you know? I think that I really embraced my Nigerian culture when I was in middle school, and when I started going back to Nigeria and really understanding my family and really understanding my community and really understanding what it means to be a Nigerian. I think that it's common that not a lot of African families are super supportive about the idea of embracing athletics, you know? But my parents always recognized the value in me not just being in the books, but also a multifaceted human being. They wanted me to explore different things and find my passions, you know? So they were always incredibly supportive of anything that I wanted to do. A big thing that led me to swimming was that my older sister swam. She was an amazing swimmer as she was growing up. A big thing I joke about is that a lot of club teams, I don't think really wanted to have me on their club team. So I think a lot of people saw me as almost a drowning hazard. It was about middle school or high school where I started to really see a future in the sport. So I was a really small kid growing up, and so I hit a really late growth spurt, and at the time, even the idea of swimming in college was a reach for me. You know, I didn't think that it would be even possible. When I was a freshman, I joined the cross-country team and absolutely hated it. I just did not like having to run outside in the heat, and the long distances were pretty abysmal. But I remember thinking at that point in time, well, if I go to cross-country practice, I won't have to go to swim practice. I had to at one point decide which one was the worst of two evils. Yeah. I was a good cross-country runner at the time. I think that I was just very athletic. I had that conditioning from swimming that not a lot of other kids had. So yeah, cross-country was great. I actually remember thinking at one point in time that maybe I would have wanted to do cross-country instead of swimming as a collegiate sport. But I almost felt like I was drawn to the water more than I was, I guess, cross-country. I think there's a certain level of peace that I found when I was swimming, and I could feel myself progressing so rapidly in swimming, and I knew that I could definitely go somewhere with it if I just kind of stayed focused. When I was in high school, I think that my Nigerian identity was very distinct from my swimming identity. You know, I didn't really think about the possibility that I could represent Nigeria internationally until maybe I was in college. I didn't really think that I wanted to go to UMBC, primarily because I spent my entire life swimming there. And I was like thinking that maybe I could swim for another school, you know. But like I said, I was a small kid in high school. I never really grew until maybe later in college. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of collegiate opportunities to swim. What it came down to eventually was that UMBC was actually the best athletic environment for me to grow in. And I realized that not only athletically, but academically, they had a lot to offer. And so it really made the choice easy when it came down to it. I think it kind of goes back to the Nigerian culture a little bit, where I grew up in a really close-knit family. My sister went to UMBC too. And I felt like just being able to go home and see my mom on weekends was something that I thought was valuable. I remember thinking multiple times during that first year that maybe this isn't meant for me, maybe I don't want to continue swimming down the road, maybe this is just too hard for me, maybe I should just focus on school. When you're a collegiate athlete, you have to go to practice on time every single day, you have to be there every single day, you have to put in 110%. And I wasn't really ready for that at that time. You know, I didn't really know that was the expectation going into collegiate athletics. So that first year was a little bit rough for me. I learned how to manage my time a little bit better, how to stay focused, how to stay disciplined with my athletic and academic goals, and started getting better.
Nigeria, 7th last time out.
You know, I didn't really think about the possibility that I could represent Nigeria internationally. I swam at the African Games last summer, and it was a unique event. I think that I didn't really know what to expect. So the meet was held in Morocco, and I didn't really know what the meet would be like. It was an entirely African competition, so we only had swimmers from the African diaspora and the home-based African swimmers. And I didn't know how competitive it would be. I didn't know who would be there. I didn't know whether or not I had a chance to final or medal or what my potential was. The best memory from that whole event was the Parade of Nations, because we were able to just almost come together as a continent. It stopped being for a second about Nigeria versus Ghana versus Cameroon versus all of that didn't really exist. It was almost as if we were all kind of recognizing the fact that we were all in it together. I'm incredibly proud of not only what my country has gone through, but what I'm able to do to bring my country national attention.
It's Adejumo who will lead it and will go on and win it at this rate. He's well clear. Adejumo it is.
Athletically, there's a sense of overwhelming pride that they'll have for me and for a lot of my accomplishments. I think I'm an incredibly driven individual. I try my best to make sure that I'm always trying to put my best foot forward. And I think that's something that's not only an aspect of my personality, but it's an aspect of my culture. So in college, it's about knowing that you have a limited amount of time to accomplish a set goal. And I carry that with me right now, where I try not to waste time as hard as it is, you know, and I'm up early a lot of times, I'm up late a lot of the times at night trying to get work done. But as long as I have a plan, I have a way to do it. And that's kind of what drives me through it, even when it gets hard. I was always a naturally curious kid. So I've always loved science. I loved reading. I loved learning about topics that interested me. At Yale, I'm trying to study health outcomes and how we can use computational techniques to almost better health outcomes in a clinical population. Academically, I'm training to become a physician scientist. I want to kind of compound scientific research with my biomedical clinical training, and I hope to be able to just bring almost the bench to the bedside, bring the research that we're learning in a scientific lab to the clinical population. Ultimately, my swimming career will have to come to an end, you know, And I think athletically, I'd like to almost end off in a place where I can see the Nigerian Aquatics Federation, and more importantly, just the nature of swimming in the black population just advanced. You know, I'd like to see more black kids joining the sport of swimming, more Nigerian kids representing the country and going to international meets and scoring points and qualifying for finals. That's just a dream of mine that when I'm like 40 or 50, I can look back and watch TV and see a Nigerian at finals at the Olympic Games, you know?